Why does it take a franchise hitting rock bottom, staring at a 4-7 record with playoff hopes dangling by the thinnest of threads, before anyone in that building decides to make obvious, intelligent football decisions? I'm talking about decisions that every armchair analyst, every fantasy football enthusiast, and apparently every mother with basic football knowledge could see from a mile away. Yet here we are, in late November 2024, watching the Atlanta Falcons finally sign a receiver who has chemistry with their $180 million quarterback, finally utilize under-center formations like a competent NFL offense, and finally looking like a team that might remember how to play professional football. Welcome to the most frustrating, confusing, and somehow still captivating chapter of Falcons football this season. Buckle up, Dirty Birds faithful, because we've got a lot to unpack. Let's start with the headline that should have happened weeks ago. The Atlanta Falcons have officially signed wide receiver KJ Osborn to their practice squad. For those unfamiliar, Osborn is a former Minnesota Viking, drafted in the 5th round back in 2020, who spent the majority of his career catching passes from, you guessed it, Kirk Cousins. In 2021, Osborn posted 655 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns. Not earth-shattering numbers, but here's the kicker. He and Cousins had undeniable chemistry. I reached out to our Vikings correspondent to get the inside scoop on Osborn, and his assessment was refreshingly honest. He doesn't have elite hands. He's not blazing fast. He's kind of slow-footed. But for whatever reason, it just worked with Kirk Cousins. They were always on the same page. Sometimes in football, it really is that simple. Chemistry isn't always about measurables or 40-yard dash times. Sometimes it's about timing, trust, and an inexplicable connection between quarterback and receiver. And if there's one thing this Falcons offense desperately needs, it's more weapons who understand Kirk Cousins' tendencies. Now, Osborn signed to the practice squad, which means one of two things happens next. Either he gets an immediate promotion to the 53-man roster, or the Falcons activate Nick Nash or Chris Blair. Either scenario adds depth to a receiving core that's been decimated by injuries and inconsistency. But here's my burning question. Why did it take this long to add another weapon? Drake London is expected back sooner rather than later, which is fantastic news. But this is a 4-7 football team clinging to the faintest playoff pulse. Every game matters. Every possession matters. Every target matters. So, why are we making these moves in late November instead of early October? The worst-case scenario with Osborn? He doesn't pan out and you cut him. It costs you virtually nothing. The best-case scenario? You've added a receiver who already speaks Cousins' language and can contribute immediately. This should have been a no-brainer move weeks ago. Now, let's pivot to something genuinely exciting happening in Atlanta. This pass rush might be one of the best in franchise history. Yes, you read that correctly. The 2024 Atlanta Falcons currently have 39 sacks, which ranks 10th in franchise history. And we're only in week 12. Let that sink in for a moment. This isn't just about 1 or 2 elite pass rushers carrying the load. This is a collective effort, a symphony of pressure orchestrated by multiple contributors. But today, I want to spotlight the 2 rookies who are absolutely justifying their draft capital, Jalen Carter and Bralen Trice. Let's start with Bralen Trice, the player many fans questioned when the Falcons traded up to select him. We don't have a first-round pick in 2025. Way to go, Terry Fontenot. The criticism was loud and immediate. But here's the reality. Trice is starting to look like a legitimate game wrecker. Early in the season, he was generating pressure, but not finishing plays. The athletic ability was evident, but the production lagged behind. Not anymore. Against the Saints, Trice recorded 5 pressures, 2 tackles, 1.5 sacks, which honestly should have been 2, 1 pass breakup, and a 26.7% pass rush win rate. He now has a sack in 3 consecutive games. The talent is there. The finishing is there. The investment is paying dividends. Am I upset the Falcons don't have a first-round pick in 2025? Of course. I want as many draft picks as possible to rebuild this roster after the inevitable coaching staff overhaul. But the defense has never been the problem this season. Outside of a couple of head-scratching performances against Carolina, look at what this defense did against New Orleans. 5 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, 7 passes defended, 8 quarterback hits, 1 fumble recovery, 1 interception. They held the Saints to 5 of 16 on third down and surrendered just 3 offensive points. Yes, it's the Saints. Yes, they're terrible. But this was still a dominant defensive performance, and it's part of a larger trend. Over the last 4 games, this pass rush has recorded 22 sacks. That's over 5 per game, one of the best stretches in the entire NFL. The defensive line looks sharper every week. The stunts are cleaner. The creativity is improving. Getting players like Billy Bowman, who unfortunately suffered a torn Achilles and will miss the remainder of the season, involved in blitz packages added another dimension. Both Jalen Carter and Bralon Trice have 4 tackles for loss. Carter has 5 sacks. Trice has 4, but leads in pressures with 9 quarterback hits. The only significant difference is that Carter grades higher against the run, which makes sense given his role. But here's the beautiful part. If Carter becomes your 3-down defensive lineman who excels against both run and pass, and Trice becomes your designated pass rush specialist, you've got 2 foundational pieces for this defense for the next decade. My question for you: where does this Falcons pass rush rank in the NFL right now? I genuinely believe it's top 6, maybe not quite at the level of Denver or Houston, but somewhere in that elite 3 to 6 range. Now we arrive at the most infuriating, head-scratching, pull-your-hair-out topic of the week. Kirk Cousins playing under center. Against the Saints, something changed. Kirk Cousins operated under center significantly more than he had all season. The offense looked different, sharper, more dynamic, more threatening. And head coach Raheem Morris confirmed what many suspected. Kirk Cousins is more comfortable under center than Michael Penix Jr. Let me be crystal clear about something. Raheem Morris might not be a great head coach. He might not even be a great coordinator. But he's not a liar. If he says Cousins is more comfortable under center, I believe him. But here's my question for Raheem, Zach Robinson, and Terry Fontenot. Why would you draft a quarterback 8th overall if he doesn't like playing under center? Playing under center is one of the fundamental hallmarks of being an NFL quarterback. It's not optional. It's not a stylistic preference. It's essential to running a modern, effective NFL offense. And isn't it your job as coaches and developers of talent to teach him? You don't need to develop Kirk Cousins. He's a finished product. Michael Penix Jr. is supposed to be the moldable clay, the project you invest in and shape into your franchise quarterback. So either you were negligent in your pre-draft evaluation of Penix, shame on you, or you assumed he'd just magically develop without proper coaching, also shame on you. Consider this. Going into the Saints game, the Falcons ranked 31st in the NFL in under center usage. Look at the other teams at the bottom of that list: the Saints, Bengals, Commanders, all struggling teams with losing records, with the exception of Kansas City, who are winning despite this inefficiency. Now, look at the top 5 teams in under center usage: Rams, Seahawks, 49ers, Lions, Bears, playoff teams or teams with winning records. The best NFL offenses operate under center because it opens up play action, creates deception, and keeps defenses honest. Anyone with basic football knowledge, my mother included, could watch those statistics and conclude, yeah, you should probably do what the successful teams are doing. Yet somehow, Zach Robinson and Raheem Morris believed they could reinvent the wheel and run a successful offense from the pistol. It's coaching malpractice, plain and simple. Here's another damning statistic. The Falcons were dead last in play-action usage entering the Saints game. Against New Orleans, on 23 passing attempts, they ran 9 play-action attempts, 39%, compared to their season average of 9%. On those 9 play-action attempts, Kirk Cousins completed 7 for 117 yards and a touchdown. One of the incompletions was a drop, likely Kyle Pitts. So Cousins was essentially 8 for 9 for approximately 135 yards and a touchdown on play action. Why didn't they do this sooner? Why did it take hitting rock bottom before someone made an intelligent adjustment? Maybe Kirk went to Zach Robinson and demanded these concepts. Maybe Robinson finally decided he trusted Cousins more than Penix to execute this scheme. Maybe it's both. Regardless, this should have been fixed weeks ago. Section 4. The playoff math and the frustrating reality. Let's talk playoff scenarios. Even though it feels like discussing a pipe dream, Tampa Bay sits at 5-6. Atlanta is 4-7. If Carolina loses tonight and falls to 3-8, the Falcons still have a mathematical path to the postseason. I'm not saying this team deserves to make the playoffs. I'm not even saying they should make the playoffs. But mathematically, the door remains cracked open. So, why are we only making smart decisions now? Why does the sky have to be falling, with fans calling for everyone's jobs, before this coaching staff implements obvious improvements? Zach Robinson finally utilizes under-center formations. The front office finally signs another weapon. These are moves that should have happened in October, not late November. This reeks of coaching incompetence and organizational dysfunction. And yet, somehow, we're taking steps in the right direction. It's maddening. It's confusing. It's quintessentially Atlanta Falcons football. Something feels off about this season. I can't quite put my finger on it. When the Falcons win, they make smarter decisions. When they lose, they double down on bad ones. It's almost like this organization operates in reactive mode rather than proactive mode. All I know for certain is this: the Falcons signed a receiver who has chemistry with their quarterback. Kirk Cousins finally played under center like a modern NFL offense. The pass rush continues its historic tear. And Atlanta beat the Saints. Is it enough to save the season? Probably not. Is it enough to save jobs? Definitely not. But it's a start, a frustrating, long overdue, better late than never start. Now, it's your turn, Dirty Birds faithful. Drop a comment below. Do you think KJ Osborn makes an immediate impact? Where does this pass rush rank in the NFL? And most importantly, why did it take this long for the coaching staff to figure out the obvious? Smash that like button if you're as frustrated and confused as I am, and let's keep this conversation going. Because if there's one thing Falcons fans know how to do, it's survive the chaos and keep believing. Rise up, Dirty Birds, and let's see if this team can finally put it all together.